Hey everybody, welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Live Stream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr., rocking live from sunny South Florida. We are, of course, on season, gosh, it's season 5? It's season 5 of the show already. All right. Pretty exciting stuff. Glad you could join us. Thank you for continuing to join with us. If you could like, subscribe, hit the alert bell and all that jazz, it lets our technocrat overlords know precisely how much you enjoy me and my content. So thank you, everybody. Really, genuinely appreciate you, the audience. You make all of this possible. So today, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I don't have a guest, and we're not going to do an Ask Me Anything. I am going to simply have a sort of fireside chat with you, the BSV community, and anybody else who's watching. So hi Greg, or anybody else who's out there watching the show. Really, I appreciate you too. But we are going to be talking a little bit about some of my bigger, broader thoughts. It's I was sick for the first week, and then we didn't ask me anything. But I've been trying to put together my thoughts on like a sort of thesis, a manifesto, if you will, for the lifeblood, the heart and soul of Bitcoin going forward. And that's what this show is going to be about today. So I'm going to talk about my big ideas, some of my solutions, maybe how to learn from some of the lessons of the past and move forward being successful, taking our self-sovereignty into our hands and rocking and rolling the way that only a real Bitcoiner can. So if you would be so kind, let's check out a couple of clips from our sponsors and the people that make the show possible. And then buckle up, because we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's important to me and hopefully the stuff that's important to you. And I hope this is something that maybe you can share around to the other people in your life. We're going to talk a little bit about how we got here, why all of this is the way that it is, and then ultimately talk about a little bit of vision for the future. And I'm pretty pumped about it. So without any further ado, we're going to cut to an ad from Rock Wallet, who has been so kind to continue to sponsor us throughout 2025, or at least up to the moment here in 2025. So we're going to play that ad from Rock Wallet, and we will be right back. Thanks again, Rock Wallet, and thank you, everybody. So I'm going to take you on a little journey. Let's rewind back to the world of circa 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. A little weird, right? This is the era that precedes Bitcoin. We're going to talk about what the world looked like going into the Bitcoin era, or the beginning of the Bitcoin era. Ultimately, if you look at where we were, the world was in a massive bubble. There was the housing bubble. There was the bundling of bad mortgages to create new financial vehicles that you can invest in because it's safe, because everybody's bundled in it together, right? That was obviously a pretty rough one. Standard & Poor's was being sort of strong-armed into giving good news even when there was none, and we had the collapse of Bear Stearns and a bunch of this other stuff. We also had big upheaval in the world politically, and then the world kind of turned into this Occupy Wall Street, and you had the Tea Party patriots and all this stuff going on. The weird post-Bush entering the Obama era, and a bunch of these things that got really weird. It was a weird era for the world. But there was also this sort of bubbling of the cypherpunk movement. The cypherpunk movement was not really a monolith. The cypherpunks were a group of people who were sort of internet anarchists. They kind of had a libertarian slant, but lots of them also had sort of a communist slant, but they were maybe privacy advocates at the same time. And a lot of them would be sort of working day jobs in bank security or working with intelligence agencies, and then they were moonlighting as internet activists. And so it's a little bit difficult to figure out which of them were a psyop and which of them were actually, true believers in the mission. And that mission was to have private, secure communication for the world. These people were supposed to be helping us change the world, give the world the technology it needs to be able to communicate freely, communicate privately, ultimately own their own data at some point. And then they also needed a currency. They needed a money so that they could transact between each other peer to peer, because we knew that censorship could happen with tools like PayPal or credit cards or banks, which could all shut you off if they didn't like the things that you were saying. And so they were working on problems based on some of those challenges. And so there were lots of attempts at creating digital cash or various types of cryptocurrencies. So you had the Nick Szabos of the world coming up with white papers saying, here's how you do this. Or you had guys like Timothy May creating the blacknet concept, this concept of a private peer-to-peer digital internet. And then you had even guys like Eamon Gun-Sarer working on like the Karma cryptocurrency. These are all things that preceded Bitcoin. These are things that happened from the mid-90s up into the early 2000s. And ultimately, there were a couple dozen attempts at creating a digital cash before they became Bitcoin, before there was a viable one. And the problem with all of them is that they were not sufficiently decentralized, and they had a tendency to get taken over by criminals, which is the most surefire way to ingratiate the average person to law enforcement, saying, hey, this is used primarily by criminals for money laundering, running guns, human trafficking, and drug business. And that's not going to win fans among Main Street. And that's ultimately going to lose the battle for you. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto ended up saying the same thing about WikiLeaks adopting Bitcoin. While the Bitcoin community of the era was super excited that WikiLeaks was taking on Bitcoin after being debanked, well, Satoshi Nakamoto, he scolded the Bitcoin community and said, this is going to invite unwanted pressure. He was upset about it. But that's jumping a little forward. So Bitcoin ultimately solved the Byzantine generals problem, which is a communication problem among the nodes of the network that are validating transactions and building blocks. Now, building blocks is something that people largely misunderstand. It's just a reconciliation. So every 10 minutes, all of the unconfirmed transactions of the network are competitively reconciled and then written to the ledger. And then the only way that you know that it's been accepted is that somebody writes the next reconciliation or the next block upon the previous block. Now, despite what people talk about permanence of transactions, technically, no transaction is ever permanent. So the first payment in Bitcoin from Satoshi to Hal Finney in 2009, not 100% secure. It's 99.99999 off, nearing infinity secure because of how much provenance and how much proof of work is built on top of it. But ultimately, Bitcoin is about probabilistic security based on race conditions. It's about people competing to keep the system secure. And that's a really important point. He could have built something that was cryptographically secure from day one, but he didn't want it to be that way. He wanted people to have to focus on building the system, maintaining the system, and bringing the system forward into the future. And so in 2008, on October 31st, Satoshi Nakamoto put out the Bitcoin white paper explaining why commerce on the internet lacked payments. It lacked a way for people to send simple, small, or large payments to each other. He makes the example very specifically implying things like credit card and PayPal and whatever. That's what the internet looked like of the day. And there was a floor of about $5. If you wanted to do commerce under about $5, it just didn't make sense to do on the internet because you have too many fees. There's too many fees on credit cards and things like PayPal. So he explains the fee model of centralized commerce is too high and that Bitcoin undercuts that. It will disrupt credit cards, PayPal, and other ways to pay online in what are essentially micropayments. So this is anything under the $5 threshold. And then we often talk about things like that are under a penny. We can call those like nano commerce or nano payments, both of which Bitcoin is capable of. On chain, it makes a lot of sense to do things that are, from the, slightly less than a penny up to about $5. And then you can start to get real creative with like tokens and payment channels, all things that are inherent in Bitcoin script for doing, lots and lots of like, a 10,000th of a penny going back and forth. You can do that in a payment channel on chain. I'm not talking about Lightning Network or anything else. Bitcoin script, your nlock time and all this stuff allows us to create payment channels inherent in Bitcoin. And those were there on day one. So Satoshi Nakamoto wanted to solve those problems. And I'm not going to belabor all this stuff. I'm not going to talk about a million things, the whole totality of Bitcoin. But I want to talk about how we ended up in BSV. And ultimately, Bitcoin struggled to have its community scale. After Satoshi Nakamoto left the project, kind of slowly between 2010 and 2012, he was all the way gone. We never heard from him again after 2012. There was a sort of a soft takeover in the vacuum of power. You created the BIP, or people created the BIP repo, the Bitcoin Improvement Proposal Protocol, which then created political factions in Bitcoin. And those political factions ultimately divided themselves into big blockers and small blockers. Your big blockers believed that Bitcoin was capable of anything. Bitcoin was for commerce. You could build tokens and smart contracts and all kinds of really cool stuff in Bitcoin. And that was the exciting thing. Now, your small blockers, they wanted to turn things off. They were worried about two things only: security and decentralization, which in my opinion, decentralization is a subset of security, but that's splitting hairs a little bit. Ultimately, the small blockers wanted to shut off everything that they weren't positive was secure and wasn't going to break the network, because if they could keep the network up, that was their only goal, truly. And then to keep it up, they believed in persistence, lots and lots of distribution of what they call full nodes, what I would ultimately call Sybils in what would be a clever Sybil attack. But the Bitcoin Civil War really got fought in earnest between 2015 and 2017. Ultimately, there were lots of compromises attempted to be made between the Hong Kong Agreement and the New York Agreement to attempt to add a concept called SegWit, or segregated witness, which is a scheme to remove signatures, change block weight, allow a practical block size limit to be raised, and then everybody would move forward. But there was a big reneging on those promises, and there was ultimately a split. Bitcoin Cash split away from Bitcoin Core. The BTC and BCH tickers fought. There was kind of a lot of weird stuff going on, a lot of subterfuge. And ultimately, BTC emerged as the main chain with the most proof of work and ultimately the higher price. And Bitcoin Cash has trended away down against it. That also introduced, at the time, in 2017, early 2017, Bitcoin was 98, 99% of the market cap in the entire blockchain space. By the end of 2017 and into 2018, it had dropped considerably, well below 50%. Because things like Ethereum exploded, and the Bitcoin Civil War created a lot of space for the growth and of the crypto economy, and that was ultimately, I see that as a bad thing. So while people are celebrating today BTC at $100,000, I think that's piddly compared to what it could be. I believe all forks, so BTC, BCH, and BSV, have all lost value. We've all lost opportunity, and I think the totality of the crypto economy should be in Bitcoin. And then more, I think we would be further down the road of adoption of all blockchains into the Bitcoin sphere had all of this not happened. But that would be impossible unless somebody comes up with a time machine. So coming into 2018, BCH and BSV, or BCH and BTC rather, had split, and There was more arguing. So more arguing about the way to scale. One side wanted to re-implement Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin. So turn on all of the old opcodes, like re-enable Bitcoin as it was envisioned by Satoshi. And then there was the Bitcoin Cash contingent that wanted to add some new ideas, take away some other things. They were still sort of figuring out what their science experiment was to look like. And so in November of 2018, there was another split, and BSV split away from BCH. In my opinion, due to subterfuge that had happened with some players that made it impossible for there to be a reorg. I was involved in broadcasting about this live. We found out live on the air that there could not be a hash war, that there would be no reorgs, and ultimately BSV was a permanent split of the blockchain. And so from there, that's why we have a BSV. That's why BSV exists at all. Like, we are ultimately the Bitcoiners that at two major junctures said, no, let Bitcoin be Bitcoin. We want to see if Bitcoin works the way that Satoshi Nakamoto designed it. And both times we have lost value relative to the other side, because the other side was focused on the absorption and accumulation of value for people. They were focused on the meme. They were focused on the zeitgeist and the money. And we're the Puritans, right? We're the people that that really want to see if Bitcoin works the way that Bitcoin was designed. And it's truly tragic to me that that is not a more popular idea. That's not something that people in large want to fight for. And I get that. There's an amazing opportunity to make money with things like Bitcoin, but it's sad that nobody wants to make history with Bitcoin. And that's my biggest complaint. That's maybe the biggest tragedy that I can think of.
Choose your hero. Aldrich Soyhammer, Divine Crusader.
The time is now, champion. To war!
Jesus the Risen.
Blessed be the cheddar.
Boris, Protector of Innocence.
I'm all natural.
Solrend, Scythe of the Damned.
Your soul is mine. No refunds.
Lilith, Princess of Hell.
Self-destruction is an art.
Wagyu, Tasty Samurai.
High-grade beef with a killer instinct.
Skibbity,
Skibbity.
Brain Rot Incarnate.
Skibbity dot dot.
So, without rehashing now the entire history of the BSV economy, let's just say there's been quite a bit of personnel shuffling from up and down the empire and the broader BSV ecosystem. A lot of people have come and gone. A lot of people have had interesting startup ideas and worked on really cool things, built cool businesses, gone away. Some are still floating around. Some are still here. I'm one of these people that is absolutely still here. And there's a few of us, but there's a lot of new faces as well, people that are approaching the opportunity. We've gone through multiple major node upgrades. We're in like the third iteration of scalable monolithic node, and we're right on the cusp of the Terranode era here in the Bitcoin economy. And from that time, a bunch of my personal assets, like my old mining opportunity stuff, my mining businesses and things, like we've consolidated things into the creation of Gorilla Pool. Gorilla Pool being the only public mining pool in the BSV ecosystem. We created the Jungle Bus tooling. We've seen then now the creation of like the one sat ordinals token protocol, which has been really largely adopted. And so there's lots of interesting stuff going on, but there's been a lull too. There has been really since the beginning of 2024. I think there's been a bit of a malaise. There's been a depression over the fact that I think a lot of people thought that they were going to win this war, that the Bitcoin Civil War would be won eventually because of other people doing the work. Now, if you've paid attention to my streams for the last 5, 6, 7 years now. My message has consistently been to build your business, build your value, invest shrewdly, have your money in places where it can work for you, but also you need to work for yourself and you need to work for the victory. None of us is going to be given this on a silver platter, especially in the blockchain economy. We are seeing us, the BSV loyal, the people that see BSV as the only real way forward. We are absolutely the most hated people in the blockchain space. Nobody's going to do us a favor. Nobody's going to throw us a bone. Nobody is going to invest their fortune in giving us a victory. And by victory, I mean, the token price going up, the BSV price going up because all of a sudden it has become really popular. It is not going to become popular. Full stop. However, there is a way to win. And this is the manifesto part that I think maybe I haven't been clear on. But when I think about the proof of concept businesses and the things that have existed since 2018, this is your Twetch and your RelayX and some of these companies that were really popular, but are ultimately, they're not here anymore. Okay. But they blazed really important ground. They showed us lots of really important things. And in fact, the lessons learned in BSV have ultimately moved onto and into other blockchains. We're seeing BSV's big ideas become successful in places like BTC or Solana, which is itself another tragedy. But there's a big lesson that we've learned, even in the last 48 hours. So we've seen the Donald Trump meme coin and the Melania meme coin come up and literally bring Solana to its knees again. And the reason is that there is no good way to maintain global state in distributed consensus. It doesn't scale. Now, there are ways to pretend to make it scale. There are ways to make it more fun and seem like, holy cow, this works. This is really cool. But ultimately, there are a million lessons about why you need to have the UTXO model to truly be scalable, but then to also not use a monolithic client where the client is using one machine to do tons and tons of different things. The monolithic client era is dead. Solana has proved it. Trump has proved it on Solana by accident, I'm certain. But ultimately, we've seen like the crypto ball and the Bitcoin magazine people and Trump's going to save the world and all this. None of that is true. Nobody is coming to save you. And ultimately, the economics of Bitcoin Core and the whole crypto economy are broken. They cannot go into the future unless liquidity and volume just goes up forever, which we know is impossible. That's not how the world works. Or they adopt the entire BSV model, which you can't do in BTC for a whole bunch of reasons. One of the main ones being SegWit, and things like Ethereum and Solana, they have this problem of global state that they have to maintain that stops them from being able to scale. And that's never going to change. This is not going to be a thing that you can roll back. So the way forward ultimately is with BSV, but, and this is a huge but, it's not going to come from somebody else building something on BSV. Okay. Nobody's going to win it for you. So here's what we need to do. And I've done my best to try to provide tooling. This is why the Jungle Bus suite exists, the Banana Stack, and all these other things to give people tooling to build their businesses. Okay. You need to get really good at three major things. And I believe that those three major things are Bitcoin schema, one sat ordinals, and S-script. Oh, I'm getting the free thumbs up from the system there. So Bitcoin schema, one sat ordinals, and S-script. With those three things, it allows you to read and write data to the blockchain with Bitcoin schema. Tokens, the one sat ordinal token protocol, allows you to exchange value in any way that you can think of. So this can be things like stable coins, it can be NFTs, it can be access tokens for all kinds of real world assets and things in the physical world. And then S-script is a really powerful smart contract language that allows you to create functions that can recurse on themselves and basically allow you to program like computer apps in the blockchain, monetized, tokenized, secure, own your own data, all of that jazz. So if you get good at those tools, you can start to build companies that cannot be built in any other way. Now, who's doing this today? Right now, not a whole lot. Actually, I should give a huge shout out to TreeChat. So TreeChat.ai is using all of these tools to one degree or another, and ultimately showing people the right way to bootstrap a social media network that is utilizing all of Bitcoin's inherent qualities to raise the quality, to raise the value of the conversation. Now, I don't have any connection to TreeChat other than knowing the founder, having him on my show once, and using the app a bit myself. But what they're doing over at TreeChat is showing that you can create a business that can't be created in any other way, bootstrapped on top of the blockchain, uncensorable, own your own data, incentivize the conversation value within the system. That's the opportunity right there. Now, here's another one I've been talking about for a long time. I've thought this is a really obvious one. So here's a business idea. If you go create it, cut me in for a little bit of equity, give me kind of a tip or a commission, but somebody run with this, okay? Global remittance. Global remittance is so easy using blockchain technology. If your blockchain scales. Now, it's funny, a lot of people will tell you that Ripple scales, XRP, right? And it doesn't. They tried to do this business model. So they tried to replace MoneyGram, right? So you create liquidity pools in multiple places. It allows you to have instant settlement using the blockchain. You send money across borders in ways that, right now cost $10, takes a few hours, and is like, so it's okay. But you could do it for less than a penny and have, 3-second finality on almost any payment in the world if you used it on the right blockchain. Now, they went so far as to buy MoneyGram. Ripple bought MoneyGram. A lot of people forget that this happened. But ultimately, the deal went through because Ripple couldn't scale. XRP could not do the things that they claimed it could do after decades at this point of engineering. So while guys like David Schwartz are on the internet talking about, oh, this is the only way a blockchain can work, he's out here making fun of other blockchains, they had the singular opportunity to change global remittance for the whole world, and they couldn't do it because they couldn't scale. If somebody understands that business and can build that business model, the tech is there in BSV, and you could use BSV as that settlement layer to beat MoneyGram and Western Union and all the rest of them immediately. You just have to abstract away some of this stuff with tokens, using Bitcoin schema, using script contracts, and build a real business. And that's your business opportunity. So that's a freebie for you, okay? If you decide to build that company, by all means, I'd be happy to accept tips or any gratis that you'd like to send my way for such a good idea. But ultimately, I just want that business to be built. I want Bitcoin, BSV, to disrupt global commerce with an idea like that. And so we're about to enter the Terranode era. We're finally, we're seeing what looks like the end of the N-Chain brand and all these things. Lots of change going on. The N-Chain group looks like it's going to be sort of consolidated into this new thing called for you to be the most important person in BSV. Lots of people have had big ideas about who the most important person is, and maybe it's this guy, maybe it's that girl, or maybe it's whatever, doing whatever in the Bitcoin economy to make Bitcoin truly valuable. But there is an opportunity right now for it to be you. Now, you just have to build something that people want. Now, that is way easier said than done. I'm not saying it is easy to build a valuable business, but it is necessary. And it's the only way forward. And if we don't do it, if we don't build something that cannot be built any other way, not only will BSV lose, but ultimately the entire Bitcoin experiment will go away. That's what's at risk, because everybody else is focused on weird macroeconomics. They're worried about pumpamentals or the memes or showing up in a tuxedo to go hang out with Vivek Ramaswamy or Donald Trump and like taking pictures and raising clout and all these kind of things. And that's fine in a bubble, but that bubble, like, we are getting into an incredible, tremendous amount of debt in the world. And we need to create tools that make the economy actually more productive. We cannot just shuffle and absorb value around if nobody is creating that value and building new exponential value out of things that can't be built in any other way. If we do not do those things, we're going to start to trend down as a culture, as a species even. And I don't want to live in a world that looks that way. So I'm going to make a promise to you. My promise to you is that I will continue to work on these things to the best of my ability. I will continue to grow my businesses as I see best. I'm going to do my damnedest to see Gorilla Pool become one of the most important companies in the history of data, money, and communications. And if I fail, I fail, but it'll be at the end of me trying my absolute hardest to see that done. I am also willing to help you. I'm willing to help you with advice or with tooling, maybe even with capital. And by all means, if you have a big idea and you don't know where to start, you can reach out to me. I do answer my DMs. I'm happy to talk to you about ways that we can move forward. And ultimately, that's it. That's what it looks like. The other thing is, keep yourself healthy, both mentally and physically. If we can focus on keeping our minds and bodies in a place where they want to be productive, it allows you the clarity to do things in commerce that other people can't do because they're cloudy. They're cloudy people. And I think that's a really important one too. So ultimately, I don't want to just talk forever, but I appreciate you spending this last 30 minutes or so listening to these ideas. I welcome your feedback. I'm super excited to continue to do this show as this new season here, the CoinGeek Weekly live stream, really gets kicked off in earnest. I want to ask you, if you're an entrepreneur or you have a big idea or something you want to talk about, I want you to be my guest. So please reach out directly to the real CoinGeek account here on X. Let's get you booked. I would love for you to be my guest. I would love to talk about using Bitcoin in business, entrepreneurship in general, how to grow the world, how to give people their sovereignty back in both their data and their finances. And I want 2025 to be a world of difference that that we've been trying to fix in Bitcoin really since the Civil War started, which is about 10 years ago now. Now we're about to enter this new era, Trump being sworn in. Like, we have a new president, we have a new administration full of maverick people. We don't know what a lot of this stuff is going to look like, but it is time for us to take this opportunity in this season of change to really set the tone. And we need to set the tone focused on business, productivity, being the best you can be, and ultimately all of us being good to each other, because it's the only way we can succeed. So everybody, I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank Rock Wallet, Champions TCG, the people that have supported the show. Ultimately, you, the people who watch the show and make it possible every week for us to continue to do this show. I want to thank CoinGeek, the people at CoinGeek, for making this show possible, the production staff, the people that market the show and produce the show and make all of this stuff happen. Without you, I wouldn't be able to get this message out. I'd be giving this message out, screaming it into the universe on x.com probably. But really, it's been a pleasure and an honor working with you. I will continue to do this show until the world makes me stop. And so everybody, thank you for spending your time with me. I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr., wishing you a delightful 2025. I will see you next week for a live show that'll be much more like the regular ones. And again, for one last time on this show, be good to each other. Go out there, do some good in the world. And we'll see you next week. Take care and goodbye.